I feel like one of the big causes of this is Hello Games is coming off of a really rough start and a very like the overall view of No Man's Sky and Hello Games at the beginning was very negative. People were very mad at Hello Games, uh, but they've been working their asses off to try and make up for that, to show to us that they really do care, and I think they've been doing an amazing job. But I also feel like it is contributing to this ease of play issue. Whenever they add these new features, or I feel like a lot of the features in the game, they whenever they add these things, they don't really let them be core to the gameplay. They add them, and people go, "Oh wow, I can't wait to get my hands on that." And then No Man's Sky, Hello Games, they implement it in a way that makes it easy for players to do that. A a specific example of this being the Companions update. Previously, before the Companions update, if you wanted to tame certain creatures, you had to craft their specific bait preference. You had to discover what their bait preference was, figure out how to craft it, and use the nutrient processor to put it together and tame that creature. But now, if you want to tame a creature, you just pop a pop a creature pellet in their mouth, and you're good. That's it. It's just 50 carbon. Congrats, you have a new pet. And I'm not a big fan of that, especially like one of the examples I gave earlier with the uh, ease of using portals. It seems really simple. Like if I let's say I'm on the No Man's Sky portal coordinate exchange subreddit on Reddit, and I see someone posted this really cool looking animal, and they gave the portal coordinates, and I really want to go there. All I have to do is get a planetary chart, find a portal, charge it up, put in the coordinates, come out the other side, and pop a creature pellet in that creature's mouth. Takes you maybe 30 minutes. And I'm not a big fan of that. I feel like crossing the entire crossing the galaxy to tame an exotic creature shouldn't feel like a quick errand that you can run. I feel like by changing some of these features, it should feel more like you're going on a journey, not going to the grocery store to pick up a cool little thing that you found.
Yeah. Um, this is kind of a problem that a lot of games have, especially games as a service, which is kind of a dirty word in games these days, but any game that's continually being updated, because it used to be that a lot of things were much more difficult. Before we had portals, you had to learn how to navigate the universe and use the black hole network in order to get closer to your destination and all that stuff. That's what my community, the Spacing Guild, was concentrated on. We were a group that kind of learned how to navigate so that we could visit people across the galaxy. But now it's so easy that and other factors kind of caused the Spacing Guild to break apart. But as I was saying, games that continually update usually fall into the trap of making things easier for new users, and it's kind of something you have to do, especially with Hello Games, where there is no subscription. All they rely fully on new people buying the game. They have to make the game more accessible to new players. If they just make the game more and more challenging, for the sake of older players, so to have a better challenge, it makes it so that it gets harder and harder for new players to get into the game and want to play it. Um, So they kind of have to balance it. They have to make some things easier, and they have made early game much easier than it used to be, which is kind of good. As a longer standing player, I dislike that because I miss how challenging it was at the beginning of the game. But it is good that the game is more accessible to new players. However, what many games do, and that they should do, is to continue to add late game challenges for players to do. So instead of the game continually getting easier, they need to have ease in early game and then greater challenges, like the derelict freighters. Um, I keep going back to that because it's one of my favorite things in the game. But we've talked a lot about adding more dungeons. They should add more dungeons and make them very, very challenging. Maybe even to the point that you need a four-person team or at least another player in order to beat them because it would be too challenging otherwise with like bosses and stuff in it. So I don't want them to make things so challenging that it's not accessible to new players, but I do want them to add more challenges later in the game that would make things more fun to long-standing players.
And I agree with you. But one thing I would like to say is I agree that it is definitely better for new players to keep the beginning of the game much easier. And I feel like there's definitely a bit of a, what's the word I'm looking for, a delicate balance to approaching this. Is I feel like it absolutely, yes, should be more accessible to players that are just starting off. But I feel like it shouldn't be, I don't know, there's certain features in the game that even as a new player, it does not take very long for you to go from, oh wow, all of this is so brand new and interesting to me, to, well, I've pretty much figured this out. I've pretty much got everything under wraps. And it comes so quickly. And I feel like there should be some steps placed in there. Maybe some of the earlier, uh, maybe some of the earlier constructions and things should be, what's the word I'm looking for? Some of the earlier constructions, the things that you can build and craft, should definitely have easier, like stick to the core basic materials to help you construct them and craft these items. But definitely changing and more complex recipes and materials needed for these later game materials. Things like the uh, resource extractors, large refiners. I feel like putting those things together and crafting more in-depth, more complicated items should definitely progressively get more and more in depth so that players can feel welcome into the game, but the game becomes more involved as they continue to play so that they only feel more invested in the game and more interested in keep playing, like more interested in continuing to play and continuing to gather the resources that they need to get to that point where they feel like they've really accomplished everything.
Yeah.
Because as like I said earlier, it's very quick and especially for players that already know how the game works starting a new save. It's extremely easy to get to a point where you you're good. You don't really need to do much else anymore. You've got so much money, you don't have to worry about resources or crafting any items because you can just buy what you need. And definitely one of the things that I actually addressed in my list that I would like to bring up is I feel as though some of the items that are available for purchase should be, I don't want to say outright removed, but definitely prices should be changed, specifically for things like uh, life support gel and ion batteries. And for as for oxygen, I think oxygen should definitely be a little bit more limited for how much is available for purchase. Uh, because as of right now, like things like this, the ion batteries to uh, refuel your hazard protection are so ridiculously easy to get. They're so cheap, and you can find them at any space station. It's so cheap to get these things that players don't really feel like me personally. Whenever I'm in a hazardous environment, uh, I don't really feel that threatened by it. I don't feel like it's that much of a hassle because I just spent a minuscule amount of money to get 99 ion batteries that I can just keep pumping into my hazard protection. Uh, and it doesn't really encourage players to craft these items. And it just further address it's just another obvious fault with this economic ease that's in No Man's Sky, where you
Yeah.
can just have all the money in the world and just buy your problems away.
Yeah.
And for a game that's all about exploring and crafting, if you can just buy all of your problems away like it's nothing, it discourages you from interacting with so much of the game.
Yeah. Has Captain Steve said anything else?
Uh, yes, unfortunately, it does look like he has had to dip out.
Okay.
He's with his family now. It was good to have him around, even if it wasn't for so long. But he's definitely, as we already talked about, he was busy today,
Yep.
and he unfortunately wasn't able to be here in the discussion. But it was good to at least hear watching the stream at the beginning.
Yeah. Making things more difficult, uh, costing more and stuff. That is a possibility. Uh, I I think though we do need to like add a lot more actual content to the game, like things to buy with our money, instead of just making everything that we already have more expensive. I don't think a lot of people would really like that. But if they would add more things that we can buy with our money, maybe, make things a little more challenging to construct and make, um, would be
And
good. But we don't want to
that was
just
actually
increase the price of everything across the board, because I think that would be a bit
Oh no, I didn't want to
unpopular.
increase the price of everything across the board. I only for maybe not increase the price of everything, but maybe maybe have the availability of these items much more limited, so that you can't just buy 100 ion batteries. But as for adding things for us to buy, there's already plenty for us to buy. We just don't have a reason to buy them. As I talked about earlier, making crafting more in depth, especially for technologies and like upgrades, having giving us the option to purchase things like the nonstick pistons, quantum reactors, and all of those items, making those a core feature of the gameplay would give us a reason to spend all of the money that we're able to obtain. And again, I definitely feel like attaining the ridiculous amount of money that you can, should definitely have a few more steps to it.
Yeah.
Uh, Obviously, like I said, if we increase the involvement of crafting certain technologies, it would definitely extend the time that it would take to get to these, what do you call, to attain all of these methods that people have for just infinite money, like the
Yeah.
mineral extractors and things. Make those more of a process to attain and to craft and to build and to get these valuable assets so that it's not so incredibly easy to just have all the money in the world.
Yeah. I think a big thing that would really help this, in line with what you're talking about, is to add shipbuilding, which I can't remember if I discussed that with you. I know I did with other people, but that could be a big sink for all those different items. Because right now we can salvage ships, we can deconstruct them in space stations, and you get a bunch of these items like the pistons and whatnot, but there's no way to use those items in order to create a ship. So, and people have been asking for shipbuilding for ages. It would be really cool if they did add a shipbuilding mechanic. I know I discussed with someone that that could be what you claim a space station for, with the new space station core. You claim a space station, and then that will allow you access to a shipbuilding mechanic, and that would involve needing a bunch of those items like the nanotubes and pistons and all these different weird items that we have, which are basically just trade items. You're supposed to just buy those items, go to a different star system where they have a higher price, and sell them. But as far as I know, hardly anybody does that. Nobody plays the stock market in No Man's Sky. It's not a system that hardly anyone people used to like. They would like get a whole bunch of a certain item that is a star, has a gold star by it, which means it has a really high price, and would sell it in a particular space station star system. But yeah, all those items that they have really just don't serve any purpose. And if they did introduce shipbuilding, that's what they could be used for, is using all those different items in order to construct different ships.
I absolutely agree. But even then, even without adding the shipbuilding, even without adding that option, and as I said earlier, just keeping to the assets that are already in the game, you could still make those parts extremely useful by implementing them into construction, into the building process for a lot of these materials. And that would not only make things more it would not only make those parts themselves more valuable and give us a reason to interact with them more and to purchase them from NPCs, because like, when is the last time anyone bought any of these materials from an NPC ever? Like, I've never. Well, I'm looking here. I'm in a interacting with a trading terminal right now, and first thing on the very thing at the top of the purchase list is enormous metal cogs. I have zero reason to buy this. And I feel like there's so much more potential for items like this to be useful in the game. And
Right.
if those were made more useful, it would even give more purpose for things like crashed ships. Crashed ships would become so useful for beginner players, like players getting into the game, because you would be able to bring them to space stations, and you would be able to bring them to space stations, scrap them, and then use the parts that you get from there, rather than selling them, using those parts to upgrade your current ship as you
Right.
would for, well, any sci-fi universe. You scrap the ships for parts, and you can sell some of those parts, but also use some of those parts that you get from scrapping ships to further improve the ships you already have.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Special thanks to my monthly supporters: Shell Owens, JSpot51, Shannon and Jeremy, Meg Payton, Renee McLeod. It's friends like you that motivate me to keep creating.